one of the big outstanding issues, as we know, it's not just a cliche, is economic liberation and delivery. We hear a whole narrative, delivery, good story, good story. But the other side of the story is a very silent part of the story. And it is about relative improvement in conditions. People may have access to more services, may have a fairly substantial by social wage standard, social wage, and they may be employed, but it could be in terms of part-time jobs, partial jobs, economic public works programs, etc. And on those bases, the ANC has been driving that narrative of, yes, good story, big delivery, transformation, and the word socialism creeps in every now and again. And just yesterday, I was amused when I heard J.C. Duarte, when she was on a rescue mission to Cosatu House, use the word revolution again. I was just sharing just now, when the ANC uses the word revolution, they are really worried. That the word revolution is never, to the best of my knowledge and information, used in cabinet meetings when the serious business are being talked. But when the masses have to be persuaded that more has been happening, we hear that word. When the masses and people, generally the voters out there, have to be persuaded, you just be patient, more is happening. Don't worry about the new elitism that people really worried about, new inequalities that ordinary people see that between themselves and the leader class. When the ANC want them to stop being worried about that, they talk about revolution and things happen gradually. It is so Soviet Union and USSR, where every year or two, regularly the Soviet International announce gloriously that another phase of the revolution has been achieved. So there is so much inequality here, and we hear that, we know the ANC even said, but the Freedom Charter wasn't a socialist document. But that is very interesting. That is where one of the new divisions in our politics, party politics, electoral politics, is entering. Not so much in this election. In this election, I see it as a miracle election, a wondrous election, a bit like Alice or Jacob Zuma in Wonderland, whoever is there. There is so much happening in politics, and so little of it is feeding through into the election. Think about jobs, unemployment, think about corruption, maladministration, think about Nkandla. Nkandla is minimally feeding into the result of this election. Of course, it can be very much be that difference between 66% the last time, just marginally below two-thirds, and 61 or 62% or 60%. I believe currently ANC is in polls that are soon to be released on 58%, but with prospects of going up to 61%. And that is this 5% drop from the previous election. By ANC standards, that is a big drop. It is not collapse, but it is serious, and it means that the ANC is realizing serial decreases in its electoral support. And much of this is around these inequalities and probably unwillingness to take the Freedom Charter in terms of the 1994 settlement, to take it more seriously. Much lip service was played around that. And that's where we see the EFF making ground. Their big constituency, which will probably give them around 5 or 6% in this election, is angry young people, unemployed, angry young people. Well, sure, the black diamonds are there and the ones with the grand cars that help campaign here and there, they are there too. But to get 5 or 6% of the support in an election, you need a pretty few thousands of voters to support you. And it's often angry young people, and the EFF themselves have said angry young men is their biggest constituency. And We say, I agree very much, and I've written a little bit about it, point that post-election we're really going into a period of instability. And it's partially economic, it's partially also political parties. Both the two biggest political parties have serious internal problems, have serious leader problems. And they run with those leaders at the moment, but change will have to come afterwards. There is going to be serious instability around the small group of people that protect the president. They happen to populate the National Executive Committee of the ANC very well, but they are protecting him, and it is against a few of the voices in the NEC and many other voices in other leadership structures of the ANC. So there is instability there, and people are already now looking, okay, deputy presidents, we know the automatic order, deputy president doesn't automatically become president of the country or the ANC, either one of those anymore. And there are serious openings there. There are several possibilities there, and it's more than just empty talk that there is big pressure. Don't know whether they will be successful, but big pressure that Jacob Zuma can be asked to keep his Nkandla and step down in 2 years or so down the line. And that is going to create a lot of other instability as different factions also across the provinces maneuver to get in there. And so that is the ANC on its vote and support shading line. The EFF not doing very well in this election, but 4, 5, 6 percentage points, largely taken away from the ANC or from other new voters that could potentially have gone to the ANC. That is quite a big chunk. We know COPE didn't even manage that. They had 7% sure in the election 5 years ago, but we know from work I have also done with the CSIR people, 4 percentage points of those 7 percentage points had come from the ANC. So if the EFF gets 5 or 6%, it is already making a bigger inroad into the ANC base than COPE had done. And the EFF is interestingly, flaws and all, positioning itself not so much for this election, but they have a broader strategy going towards other elections. And as minor parties that they are cooperating at the moment, we already have BCP and SOPA, Socialist Party, they have merged their candidate list. Okay, the others are really micro parties, but it's significant. EFF is cooperating with AZAPO and PAC. I don't make much of this little bit of cooperation with the IFB, although that's interesting too. And there's NUMSA's United Front and Socialist Movement, or something like that, and Movement for Socialism. Right. Sure, tongue twister. And they're all, and WASP, the Workers' and Socialist Party, formed around Marikana there. These are little parties and more left parties that are coming together there. Whether they are going to build ground and whether NUMSA is going to go into that direction, that could have a significant future realignment prospect in South African politics. But as we know, much often goes wrong in and between small political parties, small opposition parties.